Hello, everyone. Welcome to Change Champions Season 2. You're here with Charlene, Thompson, and Trish, Thurley.
Hi.
Today, we are talking about influencing team dynamics. It's a conversation that really riled us both up because uh, I have a theory about it based on my netball teams. And Trish has also had experience with it with the area where she lives and her community. But firstly, team dynamics. Obviously, it's important that a team can work well together, as well as individuals being able to work on their own. But we speak about psychological safety and why that's important, and obviously, it should be led by the leader, but it's also reinforced by members of the team. If it's being degraded, it can be degraded very much by one person that can bring everything down. We've heard these things on LinkedIn, like, when you've got your good members of staff watching you just go, okay, yeah, whatever, to the bad members of staff and just let them carry on doing their rubbish, it really does affect the good members of staff, because it's just like, well, if they can get away with all of this rubbish, why am I over here working so hard? Why don't you deal with it? You know?
Yeah, I entirely agree that turning a blind eye, not wanting to rock the boat, a lot of people are kind of like, well, let's not make a fuss. And I'm sure they didn't mean that. And this candor about calling out bad behavior, that's quite hard to achieve if you're already feeling, like you're quite introvert anyway, which neither of us really is, but we've seen this. But also, if you don't feel safe to speak up, that it's very hard then to be candid. So just tell us a bit more about the netball team dynamic, where the theory came from.
Yeah, well, it's because I played netball at school, but I started playing again roughly as an adult, 12 years ago, I think. And all of the teams that I've been on have had really, really friendly women, just great to get along with, makes you want to play. And my recent team, so I've only changed teams because I've changed locations of where I've been living in London. And my recent team have been discussing how nice our team is. And even when we have ringers helping us out, they always comment on the fact that we're just really nice and they're very happy to help us out, right? And so we've been trying to figure out why that is. And really, in thinking about it, as I said, all of my teams have been nice. And so we kind of came to the possible theory that, is it just because we've got loud, nice people on our team? And like, I'm one of the loud, nice people. And is that all it takes to shift it? Because the bad teams have people that are really argy-bargy, the ones that clearly take out all of their frustration from the day into the game, the ones where my automatic comment is, we pay to play netball, netball's not paying us, calm down. Like, obviously we're playing the game and it's competitive and things like that, but really you're going on like as if this is the Olympics, calm down. And we don't have any of those people on our team, and I've never played with those people. And so we're thinking, is it because if you do have loud, nice people, then everybody else can calm down and just, obviously, again, calming down doesn't mean we're not competitive and we don't want to win, but everybody else can acclimatize to that, so that everybody just gets along and everybody just feels a little bit more fluid and nicer about things. Whereas if you've got meaner people, then everybody else feels protective and hard.
Yeah.
And that's my theory, because I'm not lucky. I'm not special, but all of my teams have had really, the kind of people that you definitely do want to go for a drink with afterwards, which we do on occasion in the summer. But, and so then that's what led me to believe, is that also what happens in teams.
I also concur with that, sort of reflecting on just having moved house and moved town completely to a different sort of street. And one of the fabulous things about this street was that they'd set up a WhatsApp group during COVID, just to make sure that everybody was okay, and if we weren't seeing each other, that if people needed help. And the WhatsApp group has continued as like a just a community thing, a community chat, people helping each other, people getting to know each other, the setting up social events, helping out with things. And as new joiners, it's been a fantastic way of getting to know people in the street. So immediately, wanted somebody to do some cat sitting. We had a shelf unit that we no longer needed, and we wanted to know if anybody needed it. And then, people just join in. So there's this kind of community chat going on. But the person who started the chat group and a number of the people who are active in the community are these loud, nice people. So the whole ethos, the whole dynamic of that is kind of nice. And it's a great place. You want to take part in it, you want to do things, and you want to give to this team. So I'm with you in this kind of nice and nasty. But what if you happen to be a quiet, nice person? What then? What's your take on that, Charlene?
I consider myself to be ambiverted because there have been times in my life, and there are still times when I just need to not speak for a little bit. I just need to sit in my corner. I know how I help quiet people. I'd be interested to know what you think as to how quiet people can make a difference in those teams that are either leaning towards nice or leaning towards nasty. But how I, as an ambiverted person, as a loud, nice person, help quiet people is when I'm in team meetings, and mostly they're on Zoom now, which might actually make it easier. But when you can see someone trying to speak, when you can see somebody doing this, or they've taken themselves off mute, but they've been there for a couple of minutes because they're just waiting. It's like when people are trying to pull out onto the motorway and they just can't. If you know that they can't, you stop and you let them go. So when you're in a meeting, you say, well, Kevin, what was that? I've actively been just interrupting when I can see the space where I would have jumped in if I don't have anything to say. And I know Tina's over there and she's been trying to speak for ages. I will actively say, Tina, sorry, what was that? I thought, like as if she had said something and I just didn't hear. Because we all naturally then go, oh, sorry, Tina, what was it? And Tina gets to speak, and I think, that helps a lot because you are forcing the mic into their hands, but they're not going to get it any other way unless you do. It's like I know how to walk through the door. So if I'm going to walk through the door, I'm going to keep it open for you.
Yeah, and it's sort of, I think you have to be actively scanning for that. So that's where you can work on your own self-awareness, looking for signs that people want to speak. There is the, the reactions on Zoom. I'm just thinking, is like a raised hand, that sort of thing. I just flipped screens there. I didn't realize, but it's not very kind of eye-catching, is it?
No.
I really think that I could take the lower hand now off there. It's not eye-catching. So you've got to be looking for somebody, like say, having taken themselves off mute, perhaps sitting forward in their chair. They might even be going, sort of like this. But they don't feel that they should interrupt, especially if it's somebody more senior giving forth.
Yes. Whereas due to my nature, I don't really have that problem. or I can find the openings just slightly quicker. So I'm just thinking, I was asking you the question, but actually just thinking, if I was still quiet, we've mentioned previously in past episodes, and a lot of us would have read the books where you have to find your advocate when you're going into certain meetings. And maybe we should be finding the people of influence, finding the advocates when we don't have something major to say, but just in general, if you can become acquainted with someone who you can get along with, they're more likely to see you and notice all of those things. And you can ask them explicitly, look, I have trouble speaking up in meetings, but I'm really interested in this. And if you feel like as if if you've seen me and you see that I'm trying to say something, would you mind just, easing me on in there? If you can have that conversation, it's worth having it. But when you are quiet, it's easier for people to not see you. So this is when you are networking, when you are making friends with people, even on the lightest possible level, they're more likely to just notice you when you're in the room or when you're on the call, and then they can see those slight little bits as well. So it all helps.
I've found I've joined a couple of different forums in the last 6 months. I'm not going to mention specifics, but groups where there might be 8 or 9 people and they've been predominantly Zoom because of COVID. And what I've kind of noticed is there's certain people, maybe because it could be to do with their age or seniority or the amount of time that they've been in that group, that they just like to give forth.
Yes.
If I was being unkind, I'd say witter on.
Yeah, but they're used to being the person that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get the impression that one or two of the groups, me and a couple of other people have been invited to those groups to change the dynamic a little bit. As not being people who are terribly deferential or terribly good at shutting up and sitting, like sitting quietly.
Yes.
I call it sitting on your hands.
Yes.
I'm not one of those people. But it's interesting. And me and one other team member were having a kind of one-to-one, because we're working on a piece of work together, and we both independently said this, that this is how we're finding it. And it was interesting to see that somebody else new was finding it like that as well. So what's your take on that? Have you noticed the same sort of thing in some groups?
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. Because again, it's how quickly we, what's the word? Children are resilient, but what's the other word? It's how quickly we acclimatize effectively. Because the brain doesn't like to change things. It doesn't like to do things differently. So if it says, well, this is how this is going to go, it just prepares itself for this is how it's going to go. If you're going in a meeting with these people, you know you won't be able to get a chance to speak. You go in expecting not to be able to get a chance to speak. So you end up not trying to change it, because what's the point? And that doesn't happen immediately. It happens over days, weeks, and months and years. So that whole welcoming new blood into the system, where you don't have the long history of just listening to John, it's you're going to ask questions, and people do find it refreshing, because it's harder if you're already in an established situation to all of a sudden be different. It is harder, and that's why bringing in new people, God forbid diversity, into a team and things like that, it helps to move things around. But then also it raises the question of you shouldn't ever get stuck in a rut with certain teams where the dynamic is always the same and it's always in one direction, and you're not actually in a position where you can question things. Because I had a boss one time who was adamant that she was so very well read on leadership books, and she really was, but she was adamant that she was very much a person who always wanted to know people's opinions, and she said it all the time. She couldn't stand anyone saying their opinion.
So the behavior didn't actually go with, it's like
hated it.
Yeah,
hated it. You'd get on a call with her and she would just talk at you for 53 minutes and then give you the last 7 to go, so everybody understands that, yes? And there'd be no questions. If she received the question, you could see it. She was visibly irritated, but she believed that she wanted to know other people's opinions. And it's just like, I think there's a few people out there that are like that.
I came across, we were having a conversation amongst trainers. I just need to get a prop here. The other day about how you encourage participation and how you get people to feel safe to speak up. And one of the trainers showed me what she does, which I thought was a bit more fun than the reactions on Zoom. So she said, has everybody make these little kind of things, and you kind of like this.
All right.
And if you're not sort of entirely happy, you know, so you could, that it's a lot more in your face than the, you know, putting the raising the hand sort of thing. You could even have one, I guess. It's just, but the main thing is they've got to be quite bold, so that people can see them. And so black ink on white paper is good, or dark ink on pale paper is good for that sort of thing. But I'm going to try this out in a training session next week, because I thought that was such a good idea, because there are certain groups that are reticent about participating.
Yeah, because it's the fear of the reaction. Again, if your psychological safety level is a bit unbalanced, it's very hard to be able to put your words together and then actively saying them. Whereas holding up a piece of paper, you don't have to say what it is that you're grumbling about just yet. You can just say, I've got a grumble. And then if somebody says, what is your grumble? Then it just buys you the extra second to figure out exactly what you've got to say. And, you know, that might, for people who are very comfortable speaking up, that might seem a bit unnecessary. But as we can tell, we're in a world where tons of people who want to say stuff aren't saying it because they're afraid.
You just said something that sparked a thought in my mind there. It's not even just speaking up, it's speaking. And you and I are quite confident about speaking because we've had quite a bit of practice training people, making videos, standing up and, you know, having to speak in front of groups. But again, I think people who are not used to that, they're worried that they're going to stumble over their words, they're going to and ah and not be able to get their point over. And so that anxiety, it's just easiest, less personal risk to me to just not say anything.
Yeah. And as well, where we're working in, a lot of us are working in international companies, I speak really fast. And I work with a lot of people from different European countries now. And so I'm finding myself wanting to say what I need to say and then slowing down. They can understand English perfectly fine. But I still think, let me slow down just in case, because it's just rude, quite frankly, to then speak really, really fast and possibly say some words that aren't normal English because they're slang. And then it makes it harder for someone to understand you. So then I need to say what I need to say. I need to get all my thoughts together. I need to get them out. And then I need to slow it down and make sure it's exactly clear what I'm saying. Otherwise, it can get lost in translation. That's a lot to go through before you say something.
Yeah, we take for granted being native English speakers. I can't even imagine doing this, you know, sort of a big meeting or a presentation in your second or third language, the challenge of that. And if you put that together with somebody who is unaccustomed to public speaking and feels that anxiety, so anything that we can do to help people recognize that, you know, it might be slowing down, it might be saying things a couple of different ways, it might be I'm a big fan of word pictures, trying to create analogy or word pictures around, you know, and make things visual. That's where the little things that's holding up kind of appeal to me, because so many people are visual learners, visual assimilators.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, those bilingual people as well could be some of the people who are trying to speak up, and we can open the door for them, because, you know, everybody's experts in their own fields, and it is so much easier to let the person who's always been speaking the loudest, just let them carry on, because we'll end up having to do that stuff anyway. And it's easy for it to just wear you down and erode confidence. And if you do have a little bit of confidence to spare, why not share it?
I think being working on your own body language as well, to show people, you know, what you're thinking. We're maybe depending on your upbringing, background, your culture, we are maybe told that it's not polite to show how you're feeling or it's not polite to interrupt, for example. Particularly, I think growing up as a girl, that often was told, don't interrupt, stay quiet unless don't say anything unless you're asked. Sort of thing. So there was a kind of definitely a generational thing of not being encouraged to, don't interrupt a bloke while he's speaking.
Well, definitely. And like, especially with senior, I had not a bad therapist, but a therapist that said something bad one time where I was talking about work stuff, and I'm just like, well, the senior leader is asking us to do something which will cause damage to the project that is nearly, you can't fix it. It would be very difficult to fix. And so I was talking about, well, I'm just going to have to tell him quite clearly and firmly exactly what's going to happen. And I think she was saying something on lines of, well, they don't really like to be told no. I'm like, that's nice, but no is the answer. So just like, I can pretend everything's fine, because then when it messes up, whose fault is it? It's mine. So if a leader cannot take being told no, then again, probably needs to look at themselves a little bit more to figure out why they can't take opposition. Obviously, you don't go around going, no, you're wrong, or no, you're rubbish, la, 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 la. If you have to say no to somebody who is senior than you, or anyone really, try to figure out another solutions to give them another road to go down. If nothing else, think of it as give them some place where their emotion can go. Because if you've told them something and they're feeling lots of emotion, give them an outlet. If you just tell them something and just leave them there, that's where the problems start. But yeah, I was literally told, well, leaders don't like to be told no. It's like, this is how we have problems.
I agree with you. And I've got a piece of work that I'm starting on next week with exactly that. I'm trying to help a project team where they are delivering the second iteration of a project that went not badly wrong last time, but it caused a huge amount of stress and caused some quite serious well-being issues amongst the project team. But this senior leader got their way, and people don't want that to be the same this time. So I'm helping the team find ways of being able to properly establish the really clear objectives and also decision-making roles. There isn't a proper sponsor or steerco setup. So this person has been able to behave like a bit of a spoilt child and stamp their feet and get their way, and to the detriment of other people. So I'm kind of intrigued and really interested to try and be able to help this team go through that same journey and put in place some of those really great project management principles, like having a crystal clear objective, a set of agreed deliverables, a priority in sort of what's a nice to have versus a must have. What are the triple constraints? Is it time? Is it resource? Is it the scope or the quality? And getting that established up front to be able to push back on these behaviors, not in a just sort of straight, no, I'm not doing that, but this ain't going to work because, and let me give you the rationale and let me give you some alternatives about what will work.
Yeah, definitely. So for other conversations, I want to get updated with how that's working. Thank you, everyone, today. I think we've run over a little bit longer than we usually would. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll be back with another episode. Please let us know on LinkedIn, usually, where how you found this and what your experiences are. So thank you, and we'll be speaking to you soon. Bye.
Bye.